your thoughts on critical race theory, the involvement of parents and their rights for their children and how they learn in the classroom? And would you support the banning of certain library books?
Let me write this down. I want to make sure I
You may.
get to all of this stuff.
Mr. Tatum, Ms. Wilford, write that down, please.
All right. I particularly want to write down the CRT part of the question because I want to make sure that I answer the question as it relates to critical race theory
Yes.
and not Caucasian replacement theory. Both of them have the CRT the initials. And quite candidly, as a matter of public education, I think about the same thing for both of them. They're non-issues. We've never taught critical race theory in public schools anywhere in Florida, let alone in Manatee County. And I think that these are just kinds of dog whistle phrases that are used to keep us divided and keep us separated and keep our attention away from what we really need to be addressing. And that is the reading scores that we talked about earlier and how to stop having the bus kids halfway across the county just to meet the needs of some arbitrary demographic composition of the schools. Certain library books, I will simply say that I will support the banning of certain library books as soon as I hear somebody say that they want to support the banning of Huckleberry Finn in our libraries. Huckleberry Finn was written by Samuel Clemens under his nom de plume Mark Twain, and it is replete with references to the N-word. So as soon as I hear somebody say, let's ban that book because of that, then I'll talk about banning other books. Otherwise, I think all knowledge is helpful. All knowledge is useful. All knowledge will make a difference in our teaching and certainly can't change our past. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Golden. Mr. Tatum, same question.
So I've heard the statement made, and Mr. Gold has made the statement that critical race theory is not being taught in the schools. And from a very technical standpoint, that's probably true because that is a very legal theory, right? But if you look at Darwinism, for instance, and you look at eugenics, and you say, what's the intellectual heritage of eugenics? It comes from Darwinism, right? It's the intellectual fruit. Eugenics being the idea of social Darwinism, there are superior people, maybe superior races. So even though we may not see critical race theory, technically the legal theory in our schools, we do see the fruit of it. We see things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, which was included in the original draft plan of the African American History Task Force. I have a recent post here from a Manatee County grandmother. My granddaughter came home from a school in Manatee County, told me how a teacher took them to a classroom for extra learning for math, promptly started saying how the white people keep us down, they want us in jail on social benefits. So it may not be that the critical legal theory is being taught, but these ideas are seeping into our school, right? It's the spawn, it's the poisoned fruit of that original theory, which is critical race theory, which, by the way, comes from critical theory. And I would ask Mr. Conley from the previous discussion to get a little smarter on that. Critical theory is not the idea that we teach people how to think critically. It comes from a Marxist communist group called the Frankfurt School from the 1930s, so we need to be really careful about that. So we may not be getting critical race theory, but we're getting the fruit of it in things like DEI and decolonizing the curriculum and those ideas. And as far as banning books, I'm not a book banner. I'm getting a PhD in history through the humanities. I'm not a book banner at all, but there are books that are clearly pornographic in our library, very completely. I mean, Mrs. Foreman has admitted this from the dive. She said in a school board meeting, she said, we're not quite as squeaky clean as we believe we are in this area of these kind of books. So there's a difference. It's like the Supreme Court justices said, exactly what is pornography, I don't know, but I know it when I see it, and those books need to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tatum.
Moderator, before we move forward,
Yes.
I would like the privilege of rebuttal something that was said.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Can you address? Go ahead.
Yes. There is no spawn or no result or no offshoot from critical race theory. Critical race theory is a theory that is limited in its concept, in its precept, and in its application to the legal community. I am an attorney, and so I studied this in law school, and I know what it is designed to do. It is not the spawning of something from that. What we are seeing is the use of a perfectly legitimate academic activity to meet the political machinations of a certain segment of our population. That is not good for public education. The touchstone of public education is that it is nonpartisan and that it is designed to provide knowledge, not perspective, and not opinion. And we just can't keep confusing the two because we will mess up our future. Thank you very much.
You have a rebuttal? Go ahead.
Thank you. So I would like to back up what I have to say by quoting Dr. Carol Swain, who is a retired black female former Democrat political science professor from Vanderbilt as well as Princeton. And you can go on YouTube and find her, and she says that the greatest threat to American culture, she said this in 2020, is the diversity, equity, and inclusion industry, because it is rooted in Marxist and critical race theory ideas, and that she totally disavows it and thinks that it's actually the greatest threat to American society that she knows of. So it's not just me saying this. These are people that are professional academics that have been studying these issues for many, many years, and I think you should go out and watch what she has to say, Dr. Carol Swain. She will back up everything that I have to say. These ideas of white privilege, implicit bias training, unconscious bias, these are the spawn of critical theory, which became critical race theory, and now we start seeing it in our schools. Thank you.